Hi, I'm Brian Rose. Thanks for joining us today for America's first ever weekly cash flow summit. In just a minute, best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki will join us. He guarantees he will show you a brand new way of collecting cash every week. An obscure technique that, according to Robert, can pay you income ranging from $840, $4,540, and even as much as $10,600 on a weekly basis. And he says this is so easy that anyone can do it, even if you've never invested before. You just click on your mouse once a week, and when the trade ends inside what Robert calls the cash flow zone, you get paid. That means you can make money regardless if stocks go up, down, or sideways. That's why these are very high probability trades, higher than 90% in some cases, which is unheard of in the investment world. Look, I've worked on Wall Street for 10 years, and I saw the rich using this type of strategy over and over again. But I've never seen it mentioned to the public, not once. That's why I'm excited to be here today. We're about to hear from Robert Kiyosaki, one of the most influential men in the investment world, a man who changed the way millions of people think about money. His book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has sold more than 35 million copies, and it's the #1 best-selling personal finance book of all time. Through his books and seminars, he's changed the lives of millions of people around the world. Because of his expertise, he's often invited to discuss money on NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, CNBC, you name it. More important, he's living proof that his strategies work. Robert retired rich at the age of 47, and he's on a mission to help others do the same. When it comes to collecting passive income, I can't think of anyone better than Robert. In fact, today, he collects more than $350,000 in passive cash flow every month. That's worth repeating, $350,000 every month, without working a job. Isn't that incredible? But what I really like about Robert is that he came from very humble beginnings. Back in 1985, he was homeless, broke, and desperate. At one point, he and his wife Kim were so broke that they had to live in their car for 3 weeks. Imagine that. So if you're struggling with money issues or worried about your financial future, you should know Robert has been in your shoes. Look, we have thousands of people from all walks of life watching this summit right now, and I obviously don't know what your personal situation is. Maybe you're looking for income because you want to quit that job you hate. Maybe you're looking for extra income for retirement because you know Social Security benefits won't be enough. Or maybe you just want to make some income on the side, to make your life a little easier. Whatever your situation, please pay close attention, because in the next few minutes, Robert will reveal all the details of this brand new way of collecting thousands of dollars upfront every week. Without further ado, please welcome Robert Kiyosaki. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, Robert.
Thank you. Been looking forward to it.
Robert, I can't wait to see the details of this weekly cash flow system, because when I used to work on Wall Street, I saw a lot of people getting rich with this type of strategy. When I worked at Bankers Trust, my corporate clients made tens of millions. But as far as I know, this is the first time someone is revealing it to everyday folks,
Right.
which is very exciting.
Right.
But before we get to that cash flow system, I'd like to get your thoughts on a disturbing trend in America. In recent years, we've seen the rich getting richer, while a lot of people are still stuck in the rat race. They're stuck in the middle class, working hard, deeply in debt, stressed about how to pay the bills, and worried about not having enough money for retirement.
Right.
Why do you think this is happening in America, the land of the opportunity? I mean, we've all heard that the secret to success in life is that we should all work hard and save money. But in your books, you talked about how that traditional advice is totally wrong. Is that the real problem here?
Well, there's many layers to the problem, but the question I ask the average person, what does school teach you about money? And for most people, this is deathly silence. The answer is nothing. And I think that's where the problem begins, because, the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my poor dad was a PhD in education, head of education for the state of Hawaii. Very good man, but he knew nothing about money. And so think about what happens when you have, probably I don't know how many millions of school teachers there are, who are teaching kids nothing about money, and then they teach their kids nothing about money. So that's the underlying problem. That's why I see people, giving the same mantra to their kids. Go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, buy a house, and invest in the stock market. And they have no idea what they're doing. And they're being giving advice by the same people who don't know what they're doing. So what has happened in America is we have the blind leading the blind. And it's leading to disaster, personal financial disasters for millions of people. So there's many levels to this problem.
Folks, you heard Robert. If you're struggling with money, if you're stuck in a job you hate, if you're a baby boomer like Robert, but still haven't secured the retirement of your dreams, it's not your fault. It's not because you haven't saved enough or because you're bad with money. It's because you've just been fed the wrong information. You've been told to work hard, save money, live below your means, invest in a 401k. Then, when you retire, you should lower your standard of living. Robert is saying that advice is 100% wrong. It basically guarantees you'll be stuck in the rat race, working 9 to 5 your entire life, only to retire poor. The truth is, the rich don't work for money, right, Robert? You have to put that money to work for you, and that means having a cash flow you can depend on even if you're not working. And Robert, you think this weekly cash flow strategy can be one of those sources of income?
Well, the two most important words in anything in life are cash flow. Cash is either flowing out or flowing in. So to have a weekly strategy where cash is flowing in sounds like a good idea to me.
You're talking about what you call the cash flow zone, right?
Right.
I heard backstage with this system that you simply place one simple trade, and as long as it ends inside the cash flow zone, you get paid. Depending on how much skin you put in the game, you could make anywhere from $840, $4,540, and even up to $10,600. And instead of taking big risks, you're placing bets that normally have a probability of success as high as in the 90% range. That sounds incredible. Can you show us how that works? I know you brought a special guest with you to walk us through everything, right?
So I'm only pretty good at cash flow with paper assets, but I've been working with a real expert. I'm very excited to introduce someone who can explain the weekly cash flow system using paper assets, which is perfect for most people. So with that, I'd like to introduce my mentor, should I say. I've read all of his books, James Rickards.
Robert, great to see you.
Yeah, nice working with him on this project.
Thank you. Same here. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Thanks.
Jim, welcome.
Great to be here, Brian.
For the folks at home, I've actually had the pleasure of interviewing Jim on my show, London Real. He's one of the top economists in America today, and he's a multiple New York Times best-selling author who's advised the U.S. government, including the Pentagon and the CIA. I know you and Robert's team have been working on this weekly cash flow idea for quite some time. So can you please show us how the cash flow zone works?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Robert. I'm so excited to be here because one of the main things I hear all the time from my readers is that they want more income. And when it comes to generating extra income, Robert's a genius. So I've partnered with him to reveal all the details of our weekly cash flow strategy today. The beauty of this strategy is you don't have to guess if the market is going to go up or down. Up, down, sideways, it doesn't matter. If it finishes inside the zone, you get paid. But you don't have to believe me right now. Let me walk you through some of the top examples we found so you can see it for yourself. Just keep in mind this is the first time we've unveiled the sheer power of this strategy to the public. That means all the opportunities we're about to show you have been hand-selected after crunching raw historical data. The first thing you should know is that this doesn't involve any kind of stocks, bonds, dividends, ETFs, mutual funds, income from real estate, or any other income strategy you might have heard before. Look at this trade, for example. We're looking at the stock market earlier this year. Let's stop here in mid-March. You can see the stock market was recovering from a correction. Most people would just gamble their money and try to guess if stocks would continue to go higher. But with the cash flow zone strategy, you don't have to guess the direction of the market. Your odds of winning are much better because with this simple trade, you're just betting that the market will end inside the cash flow zone, the green area on this chart. If it does, you get paid. It's as simple as that. I'll explain what happens if it finishes outside the zone in a moment. But as you can see in this case, the market went down a little bit, recovered, and it finished inside the zone. Because of that, you could have collected $2,770 all with one click of your mouse. Amazing, right? Now let's zoom in to take a closer look at the cash flow zone. Check this out in this example. The market spent 94.4% of the time inside the zone. Think about that. 94.4% inside the zone that could have paid you. Almost $3,000 in this case. Can you see how much this can be a safer way than just trying to predict if stocks will go up or down? Also consider this. Had you invested $5,000 in the market, betting that it would go up over the same period of time, you'd have made $104 in profits because you got lucky and it did go up. But with this cash flow zone play, you could have made $2,770 with the click of a button. That's about 26 times more money than just buying and hoping the stocks would go higher. Yes, that's right. You can make more money with less risk. Isn't that incredible?
That's incredible, Jim. But what if the market went nowhere? Say it just moved sideways.
It doesn't matter. As long as it finishes inside the cash flow zone, you get paid. Let me show you another example. Earlier this year in April, you could have placed one of these trades right here. Remember, we're not trying to guess if the market will go up, down, or move sideways. We're just betting it will finish inside this green area. Let's zoom in on the cash flow zone and see what happened. In this case, the market dropped, but then recovered later and finished almost where it started. So even though the market moved sideways, you could still have walked away with $3,180 because it finished inside the cash flow zone. Here the market spent 94.7% of the time inside this particular zone. Again, it spent most of the time inside the zone that could get you paid. Not only that, had you invested $5,000 betting the market was going to go higher, you'd have made just $37 in profits, almost nothing, because the market just moved sideways. Meanwhile, with this cash flow zone play, you could have walked away with more than 50 times more money without having to bet everything on the direction of the market. Like I said, more money, less risk.
Wow, that sounds great, Jim. But Robert, let me ask you this. Everyday folks think that when the market drops, you lose money. Ask any financial advisor, and that's what they will tell you. But in my years working on Wall Street, I know that's not true. The rich know how to make money even if the market drops. Right, Robert?
Absolutely. And the hard cold fact is that when the markets drop, when it falls, it's actually the best time to get rich. Unfortunately, the reason we're doing this, we've co-ventured this project, is because we hate to see our friends and families get wiped out when markets drop. They have bad financial advice. So that's why we got together and to present another point of view than investing for the long term, buy, hold, pray, and get wiped out. I think that's the worst financial advice ever, especially today.
Sorry to interrupt, but what Robert is saying is that there are ways to make money even if the market drops, and this is one of them. For example, if you invest in a 401k or you're just buying stocks, yes, you could lose money when stocks drop, but this strategy is different. As long as it finishes inside the chosen cash flow zone, you get paid. Let me prove this point by looking at a real-life situation. Look what happened with the stock market back in March. Right here, you could have placed a cash flow zone trade. Now let's zoom in and see what happened. Look, the market dropped as much as 7% because of fears of a trade war. At the time, CNBC called it, and I quote, a stock market meltdown. And MarketWatch wrote the market was, quote, on the brink of an absolute breakdown. People were scared, and 401k accounts for the average American in their 60s could have lost as much as $11,739. But had you placed this trade, you'd still have walked away with $840 that week because the market finished inside this particular cash flow zone. Isn't that incredible? Instead of losing $11,000, you could have made $840 even though the market crashed. And again, in this example, the market stayed inside the chosen cash flow zone 90.5% of the time. Let me repeat that. 90% of the time inside the zone that gets you paid. Can you see now how this is a brand new way of making money on a weekly basis?
Yes, I have to say, that's very impressive. I think it's clear how this strategy can have a higher probability of success than other types of investments. But let's back up for a minute. You just said something that grabbed my attention. You said you could have walked away with $840 that week. That means you can open one of these cash flow zone trades every week, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing. Sounds like this cash flow zone strategy could be a real godsend to anyone who's looking for some extra cash. Anyone who's open-minded enough to try something new. But where's this cash flow zone coming from? I mean, who or what determines that green zone?
Brian, that's where this really gets interesting, because Robert's team and I developed a system where we are the ones who determine the cash flow zone. You can make that area as wide as you want to increase your chances that you'll walk away with cash. Just to help you understand, let me put this chart on the screen. And let's say you're looking at the market here. Right here, you don't know if the market will go up or down. So you set up a tight cash flow zone like this. Or you can do what I like to do, which is set up a wider area to minimize risk and increase the chances that the market will end up inside the zone and you'll get paid. Like this. I mean, with a big cash flow zone like this, the chances you'll walk away with cash are very, very, very good. Does that guarantee you'll only see winners? Of course not. Whenever you're dealing with the markets, there's always risk. If the trade doesn't end up inside the zone, you'll lose. So I don't recommend anyone bet their mortgage money on this. But you can see how you can reduce your risk by picking a wider range. So to me, this strategy is like striking oil everywhere you dig for it. Here's a good way to think about it. We're in Scottsdale, Arizona right now. And let's say we want to guess what the temperature will be a week from today. But you don't have to pick the exact temperature, you just need to pick a range. How would you go about doing that? Well, you can just look at the historical average of temperatures in Scottsdale around this time of year. Robert, what would you say is the average temperature around this time of year?
God, he got me probably 80.
Right?
Perfect weather is what it is.
Yep. Okay, so let's say that's the historical average. It's very unlikely the temperature will be higher than 100 degrees or lower than 20 degrees. So I'm willing to bet money that the temperature will stay inside that range between 100 and 20 degrees. That's a very high probability bet, right? It's way higher probability than trying to guess the exact temperature. That's what we're doing here with the strategy. And the way you set up the zone is...
Hold on, Jim. We'll get into the mechanics of this trade in just a few minutes, but before we get to that, I have a question. Robert, everything you guys told me so far sounds amazing, but here's my question. If this is such a good strategy, how come everyone isn't talking about it? How come they tell you to invest in a 401k or a mutual fund instead? Is that because all of those Wall Street fees they're charging?
You got it. I mean, it's just follow the money, as they say. And to me, the worst financial advice is to save money and turn it over to Wall Street, because they make money even if your money is, even if you're losing money, they're making money. It's a thing called fees. It's a very specific term called assets under management. They want as much assets under management. The moment they have your money, they're charging you fees on it. Plus you have mutual funds fees, you have this fee, that fee, this fee, that fee. The cash is flowing out, not into you, right?
That's exactly right.
I mean, millions of people all over the world today are hurting for income, but Wall Street's not.
Right.
They're just making so much money. The banks are richer than ever before, but mom and pop, the average people like us, are getting taken a beating.
Look, they don't want anybody to learn this cash flow zone strategy. Wall Street and the media want you to believe you're dumb and that this is only for what they call sophisticated investors. They want you to feel powerless without them. They tell you, hey, this investing stuff is really complicated. Why don't you just give me your money and I'll manage it for you? And they'll take a big cut of your money every year, even if they lose your money. It's real theft. It's a big Wall Street scam that steals money from millions of everyday folks who don't know better. That's why Robert and I are on a mission to tell everyone about this cash flow zone strategy. I mean, they want you to think you're not capable of using this strategy, even though it's so simple anyone can do it. You place a trade with the click of a button, and if it finishes inside the zone, you get paid. What could be simpler than that? And here's what's really shocking. While they tell everyday folks to put their money in failing 401ks and other buy and hope strategies that never work, a lot of the pros on Wall Street are using this cash flow zone strategy to make a fortune. Even Fidelity, one of the biggest firms on Wall Street, has admitted that the strategy behind the cash flow zone offers, and I quote, high probability income with limited risk.
That's so true, Jim. Like I mentioned before, I used to be one of those greedy bankers. And I can tell you my friends on Wall Street are very familiar with this type of strategy. But Robert, let me ask you this. Most folks don't know much about investing. They don't have any training in finance. I mean, I bet a lot of people watching today don't have a lot of experience in the markets. Could someone who knows very little about this investment do this?
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost imperative they do this. Look, most of the people handing out financial advice, like your financial planner, don't know anything either. I mean, it takes, 60, 70 days to become a financial planner? it takes 2 years to become a hairstylist. You know what I mean? Who are you going to take advice from? I'd rather take the advice from my hairstylist.
Brian, just to add to Robert's point, with the right guidance, this is so simple, I believe anyone can do it. You don't even need to know anything about investing to get started. In fact, we found stories of everyday folks who are already cashing in. People like Charles Z. from Michigan, who says, I've made somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000 of profits. I am using the cash flow zone as retirement income along with Social Security. My favorite thing about it is that you can work with a range rather than predicting a direction. Todd B. from Florida says, I made $12,500 in one day. I'm 56 and looking at retirement. I have a good job, but I'm getting sick of it. Julia G. says, my favorite thing about this strategy is the ability to make money in an up or down market as well as consistently.
And Jim, these are people who don't know much about investing?
That's right. This is so easy that you can place these trades right from your account, and it's so safe that the government even allows you to do it right from your IRA. Just look what happened to Matt Z. from Texas. Using this type of strategy, he says, I've made $40,000 in just 3 months. Again, that's worth repeating. I mean, 40 grand is a good annual salary for a lot of people. And Matt made all that money in just 3 months without being stuck in a cubicle working 9 to 5. If he was able to repeat this, it's like having an extra annual salary of $160,000 without working a job. Imagine if that happened to you. How would that kind of extra income change your life? Brian M. from Chicago says, this strategy really works. I've made $5,000 in a short period of time. And Richard G. from Michigan says, it's conservative, it's relatively safe, it's high return, it's easy to understand, and it's easy to execute. So if you're watching this right now and wondering if you have what it takes to do this, you should know that everyday folks just like you are already cashing in with this strategy.
That's exciting, Jim. So let me see if I've got this right. You're saying that anyone can use Robert's cash flow system, and you can place a simple trade and choose a cash flow zone that's wide enough to give you a high chance of walking away with some cash?
That's exactly right. Check out what happened with the stock market back in April, for example. You could have placed a simple cash flow trade right here. The stock market went all over the place, but it stayed within the zone 89% of the time, and it finished inside. So you could have walked away with $4,540. Or how about what happened in March? The market went nowhere, and most people who were simply buying stocks made no money. But with this strategy, you could have walked away with a $4,240 payout, simply because the bet was right. The market finished inside the zone. Why flip a coin on the exact market direction if you can place a cash flow zone trade? Even if the market tanks, you could still get paid. For example, back in February, the market had a huge drop, but because it finished inside the zone, you could have walked away with $1,380 that week instead of losing money like most people did. And notice that in this case, the trade ended up staying inside the zone 89% of the time. See how easy this can be? You're not buying or selling options on any individual stocks. All you needed to do is click your mouse to place a special options play, one that most people have never heard before.
Hold on, Jim and Robert. If my math is right, from these 3 examples alone, you could have walked away with a total of $10,160. That's 10 grand without having to bet if stocks were going to go up or down, like when you're just buying and holding. Now I can totally see how this is different than trading stocks or investing in a 401k or any traditional investing. But Robert, let me ask you something. Jim said you're not buying stocks or options on individual stocks. So what's involved in these trades then? I mean, most people know that on average the stock market goes up 7% a year. And just to play devil's advocate here, the stock market has been on fire in recent years. So why not just bet on stocks? Do you think there's going to be another market crash?
That's a great question. I mean, obviously, yes. Markets always go up and markets always go down. Well, one of the reasons I started working with Jim here, as an insider, he saw much more than a crash. I mean, this one could be a very, very big correction. The biggest change in the history of the world, possibly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we all remember what happened in 2008 when some stocks dropped 80, 90%. Many even went to zero. I know many people who lost a ton of money. A lot of my former banker friends lost millions on their portfolios, and my dad, who's retired, also took a big hit, like most people. Retirement accounts lost up to $4 trillion, and millions of retirees went broke. Bloomberg reported that even now, a decade later, many still haven't recovered. So I totally see the advantages of not having all your money just betting on individual stocks. I mean, when you buy a stock, you only have a 50% chance of making money, right? It can only go up or down. If it goes down, you lose. That's a 50% coin toss. Like you've been showing us, with the cash flow zone, your chances of winning are way higher, sometimes up to the 90% range. But if you're not using stocks, what's involved in these trades? What are you betting on?
I can take that question, Brian. A big reason why this strategy reduces risk is because we're not betting on any single stock. We're betting on something called an index, which is a basket of securities. I'm talking about indices like the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, and the NASDAQ 100. Let's look at the S&P 500 index, for example. It's a basket of the 500 largest companies that are listed on the big exchanges, and it basically represents the U.S. stock market overall. So by betting on the S&P 500, we're not betting on any single stock. Let me show you why that's important. Look what happened with the S&P 500 index at the beginning of 2018. Let's assume you placed a cash flow zone trade right here. So you're not trying to guess that the stock market will go up or down. You're just betting it's going to finish inside this green area. Now let's zoom in and see what happened. The market dropped almost 10% because the Federal Reserve, the U.S. central bank, said it might raise interest rates to slow down the economy. That was bad news for the market, but it recovered and finished about 2% lower. Now here's the thing. During that same time that the market was very volatile, some stocks fell much more than that. Stocks of a company called Inpixon, for example, fell 60%. A company called Concept Therapeutics fell 39%. And shares of Chipotle fell 23%. Let's say you had invested $5,000 in each of those stocks. You would have lost $6,100. Now compare that to the cash flow zone strategy. Because the S&P 500 is more diversified, it fell only 2% during that time, and it finished inside the zone. And you could have walked away with $1,380 instead of losing more than $6,000. And even with the crash, if you look at the chart, you can see that the S&P 500 index stayed inside the chosen zone 88.9% of the time. So this was a very high probability trade. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is. That is really amazing. It's shocking most people don't even know you can place those types of trades. I mean, it sounds like these trades are relatively safe, but if you talk to financial advisors and Wall Street guys, they'll tell you that if you want a good return, you have to take big risks. Are these financial advisors wrong? Robert, I mean, these financial guys are pros.
And most of these financial planners, they're just salespeople. They're good people, but they're salespeople. They have to put food on the table like all of us do. So they will tell you almost anything that Wall Street tells you to tell us. As my rich dad taught me, you're either on the inside or the outside. And the two of you, when it comes to Wall Street, are insiders. I mean, would you buy a 401k? No. The insiders don't touch that stuff, but the outsiders do. So that's why we partnered up. We have to say something because friends and families are getting ripped off as we speak because of lack of financial education.
Robert, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make an important point. If you look back over the last 10 years of data, the S&P 500 index almost never moves by more than 5% in a single week. It's very rare to see a big move. So mathematically speaking, if you set your cash flow zone range around that normal volatility, there's a very high chance you'll get paid. Just take a look at this chart. This is the same cash flow zone. On the left, you can see how a typical stock behaves. And on the right, you can see how a typical index behaves. As you can see, an index is much less volatile than individual stocks because it's a basket of securities. And that significantly increases the chances that the index will end inside the cash flow zone and you'll get paid. On the other hand, with stocks that have a higher volatility, there's a higher risk the trade will end up outside the cash flow zone.
So you're saying indexes are less volatile because they're composed of hundreds and even thousands of stocks, and their up and down movements tends to cancel one another?
You got it. Just think about it this way. Indexes greatly reduce company-specific risks, such as a bad earnings result, a surprising acquisition announcement, etc. I mean, the index cannot lose a CEO. The index cannot have a bad earnings report or cut dividends. And the index cannot fail an FDA approval. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thanks for explaining that to us, Jim. Robert, earlier we talked about how you could do this type of trade every week, and that could create a constant flow of income. So this sounds like a perfect example of putting your money to work for you. And you always mention in your books that putting your money to work for you is better than saving money in a 401k or saving account that pays 0%, right?
Yeah, well, let me say it again. Cash is either flowing in or it's flowing out. And the reason so many people are struggling because without financial education, the cash keeps flowing out. With this system, you have a chance of reversing the direction of cash flow to have it flow in, and that's called financial intelligence or financial IQ. And this system that Jim and I have put together is safer, it makes more sense, but it gives you a better chance to make money no matter what's happening, going up or down. You can still have income coming in. And that's the beauty of the system. That's much better than a 401k.
Okay, I'm impressed. Sounds like this is a great way to generate income from the markets every week. I mean, let's look at the examples Jim mentioned so far and put them on the screen. You could have cashed out with $840 in one week, $2,920 another week, $4,240 another week, and so on, for an average of $2,781 per week. Look, if I could, I'd get in a time machine right now, jump back and place every one of these plays. And if I did that, I'd probably be in the Bahamas right now, spending all that cash. Of course, no one can guarantee that history will repeat itself, but just imagine if you could collect an extra $2 to $3 grand a week. How would that change your life? Sure, this strategy will not make you a millionaire overnight, but those thousands can really add up quick.
That's right, Brian. I think that's a very good point. Look, if you're looking for a get-rich-quick scheme, this is not for you. This strategy is not about making a fortune from one single trade. It's about collecting consistent income without taking unnecessary risks with your hard-earned money, and without having to work a job you hate. But here's the thing. When you start collecting $840 here, $1,380 there, another $2,770 there, it can add up really quick. I mean, that average of $2,781 a week you mentioned, that's a little more than $11,000 a month, more than 3 times more than the average salary in America.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Sounds like this could be a great way to make some side income if you're stuck in a job you hate. And if you're watching this and working towards retirement, I just did the math here. That $2,781 a week is also almost 8 times more money than what the average Social Security check pays. Very impressive. Okay, let's move on because I still have a bunch of questions.
Sure.
For example, Robert, you mentioned this strategy uses indexes. And Jim, you already gave an example of the S&P 500 index. Is that the only one?
No, there are others. For example, the NASDAQ 100 is a basket of the 100 largest, most actively traded U.S. companies listed on the NASDAQ stock exchange. And you can also place cash flow trades on this index. Look what happened back in March. You could have placed a trade right here, betting the index would finish inside the cash flow zone, this big green area. Let's see what happened. The index went all over the place, but ultimately ended very close to where it started. So it just moved sideways, but while most people made nothing from this movement, you could have pocketed up to $4,560 simply because the index finished inside the zone. And remember, we're not talking about some wild gamble here trying to predict the market direction. The index stayed inside the zone 90% of the time. But what if the index goes up? Well, let's look at what happened with the index in March. Remember, you're not risking your money betting exactly how much the market will go up or down. You just need the index to finish inside our chosen zone. And that's exactly what happened. In this case, you could have walked away with $5,540. Think about that. That's $5 grand without having to roll the dice in the direction of the market. In this case, the market spent 94.4% of the time inside the zone. In other words, it spent most of the time inside the zone that would get you paid. And you can do this every week. Even if the market drops, you can get paid. Look what happened when the NASDAQ dropped as much as 10% back in January. The index recovered, and because it finished inside the zone, you could have made $2,970. That's almost $3 grand in a down market. Now here's the beauty of this strategy. During this same period, some other stocks fell much more than the NASDAQ index. Shares of i2 Bioscience fell 50%. Roadrunner Transportation Systems fell 43%. And shares of Expedia fell 22%. Had you put in $1,000 in each of those stocks, you could have lost a total of $1,150. I think we can all agree that making around $3 grand with that cash flow zone trade is better than losing more than $1,000, right? That's the beauty of indexes. They're much less volatile than individual stocks, so they have a higher chance of finishing inside the zone. With this trade, despite the big drop, the index stayed inside the zone 90.9% of the time. Incredible, right? Also, remember that Robert's team and I have developed a system where we determine the cash flow zone. So we can set that up with optimal width in a way that will increase your chances of getting paid.
Okay, Jim, we'll get to the details of this cash flow system in just a moment. First, I have a question for Robert. I want to ask you about something I read in one of your books where you talk about the cash flow quadrant. Where does this cash flow zone fit inside the quadrant? Can you cover that for a bit? We can put your cash flow quadrant on the screen for the folks at home.
Right. Very good question. You know, we go to school, get a job, and you become an employee. And then my mother tried to get me to become a doctor, you know, and that you become an S, a specialist, or you become a small business owner, or, you know, somebody small. But my rich dad always said become a B, which is 500 employees or more. So I became an entrepreneur with more than 500 employees. And I stands for investor. But as I said earlier, you're either on the inside or you're on the outside. So the I actually stands for investor on the inside. And the reason I'm partnering with Jim is because he's seen the horrors and you've seen the horrors from inside a deal. Probably the hardest quadrant is the B quadrant. You know, that's the Jeff Bezos or, guy Zuckerberg and all that. And the beauty of what we're doing here, it gives E's and S's opportunities to move over to the I quadrant, looking at the markets from the inside, not some outsider, listening to what their financial planner is telling them, their stockbroker or the real estate broker is telling them. My rich dad always said the reason they call them brokers is because they're broker than you. And they're giving you bad financial advice. And I've been saying that for years. My financial planner friends don't like me, but heck with them. Jim and I are very concerned about what's coming down the road and want to give people a chance to looking at the world from inside, not from the outside, being a bowl of goods. It doesn't work.
So let me see if I've got that right. Employee and self-employed quadrants are on the left side. That's active income. You are trading time for money.
Right.
In order to make money, you must perform something. Every day, you start from zero. Business owner and investor quadrants are on the right-hand side. That's income you collect without having to work at a job. And what you're saying is that if you want financial freedom, your goal should be to move to the right in one or both of those quadrants, B and I.
Correct.
And you're saying this cash flow zone strategy can help you get into the investor quadrant. Did I get all that right?
You got it correct.
All right, let me recap a little bit because we've covered a lot of ground. So far, we've seen how the cash flow zone strategy doesn't require you to bet on the exact direction of the market. All you have to do is place a simple trade every week. And if it finishes inside the zone, you can get paid thousands of dollars. Also, Robert's team has developed a system where they pick how wide the cash flow zone is, increasing your chances of getting paid. And you're placing those trades on indexes, which are less volatile than stocks. Indexes like the S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ 100.
Brian, just to add a little bit to what you said about indexes. So far, we've seen examples with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. But you can also place those trades on the Russell 2000, which is a basket of small cap stocks.
But aren't small cap stocks risky?
Yes, if you're just buying and holding individual stocks, that can be super risky. But that's not what we're doing here. You see, the Russell 2000 is a basket of 2,000 small cap stocks, not just any individual stock. For example, let's look what happened with this index in January. The index dropped about 9%, but because it finished inside the zone, with one trade, you could still have walked away with up to $3,600. Now compare that to what happened with some small cap stocks during that period. Shares of YRC Worldwide Inc., Macom Tech Solutions, and Impinj Inc. each fell at least 40%. Can you see how the index is much less volatile? Again, you would have lost your shirt had you just bought those three stocks. But with the cash flow zone strategy, you could have pocketed $3,600. Like I've been saying, as long as it finishes inside the zone, you get paid. Look what happened with this trade on the Russell in March. The index was all over the place, but because it finished inside the zone, you could have made as much as $7,125 from this simple trade. Keep in mind, we're not rolling the dice here trying to predict the exact future direction of the market. Same thing in April. In this case, you could have walked away with $6,650. Isn't that amazing? Of course, the amount you collect depends on how much skin you're willing to put in the game. And like I mentioned before, this kind of strategy can have a very high probability of success, oftentimes in the 90% range, but it's not 100%. So like any other investment strategy, losing is possible. If it's in the zone, like it's expected most of the time, you're golden, you get paid. If not, you could lose the weekly money you collected up front and then some. We'll cover how we minimize that risk in just a moment. But for now, just consider these last 3 trades I've mentioned. And imagine being lucky enough to hit them back to back, collecting $3,600 in 1 week, then another $7,125 the following week, then $6,650 more the week after. That adds up to $17,375 in less than a month. Think about that. How would that kind of cash flow change your life? I mean, I bet 17 grand a month would be more than enough to pay your mortgage, pay off some debt like credit card and medical expenses, enough to take your loved ones on an exotic vacation, pay for your children or grandchildren's education, or just live your life without any money worries. And all that with a click of a mouse, and without having to predict exactly how much the market will go up or down. Isn't that amazing, Brian?
It really is. I mean, if you can collect that kind of extra income, it can be really life-changing. Robert, I know today you're financially free. In fact, you retired rich at the age of 47, but life wasn't always that easy for you. In your books, you talked about how you started with little to no money. At one point in your life, you were even homeless for a couple of weeks. So can you think back when you first started generating passive cash flow, income that you were collecting without having to work for it? How was that feeling?
Well, it's magical. It's wonderful to wake up and never have to worry about money. The money just keeps coming in. And if you get better at the game, like the game of golf, you get better at it, it gets easier and easier and you take less risk. But the trouble is most people think it's risky, so they do nothing. And then they listen to their financial planner or their stockbroker or their real estate broker, and they get bad advice. It's like I said, I will say this again and again and again. As my rich dad always said to me, if you're not on the inside, you're the outside. And most people are always on the outside trying to look in. What we're doing here is giving people the chance to look at the world from the inside. Because you've been on Wall Street, you've been on Wall Street. It looks different from the inside looking out, right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right, guys, as you've seen so far, this strategy has the potential to help anyone collect thousands of dollars every week. So let's get to the details behind this incredible cash flow strategy. Jim, since you've been walking us through all the examples, this question is for you. You mentioned you can set up the range of the cash flow zone in a way that increases the chance that you'll make money. Can you explain how that's possible?
Sure. Remember when I talked about guessing what the weather will be here in Scottsdale next week? If the historical average this time of year is 75 degrees, it's very unlikely that the temperature will be higher than 100 degrees or lower than 20 degrees. So I'm willing to bet money that the temperature will stay inside that range between 100 and 20 degrees. That's what we're doing with indexes. We look at historical data, market prices, and normal volatility, and we're trying to find the optimal range, a cash flow zone that's wide enough that it will be very likely to get you paid. Now, this is a very simplified version of the mechanism we use. The stuff can get complicated behind the scenes. There's a ton of math involved. The good news is we have computers that do all the calculations for us. For example, the pros on Wall Street use this formula to determine the parameters that go into the cash flow zone. The geniuses who came up with this formula, Myron Scholes and Robert Merton, even won a Nobel Prize in economic sciences for their work. And here's where the story gets interesting. Myron Scholes used to be my partner at Long-Term Capital Management, so I'm very familiar with this formula. I spoke to him almost every day for 6 years. So I worked closely with the man who literally wrote the formula. Using this formula, you can actually calculate the probability you'll make money. But don't worry, the computer will do all the calculation for you. And you can actually see the probability of profit on your screen when you open the trade. Here, let me show you how it looks on my computer. So when I set up these cash flow trades, I'm looking at trades that give me at least an 80% chance of success. That's the bare minimum I look for. And this is really it. I mean, I could spend hours here teaching this stuff, but I don't want to bore you to death with all the math details. Here's what you really need to know. You just click your mouse once a week. Then if the trade ends up in the cash flow zone, you get paid thousands of dollars. For example, you could have placed a cash flow zone trade on the S&P 500 here, or set up your range and just wait to see what the market does. In this case, you could have walked away with up to $6,925, something similar with the NASDAQ 100. Even though the index went down, you could still have made as much as $4,975 from this trade because it finished inside the zone. Or look what happened with the Russell 2000. Even though the index went nowhere, you could have collected up to $7,250 in this cash flow zone trade. Brian, imagine if you could collect this kind of cash week in, week out. Life would be much easier, right?
Absolutely. You know, people say that money doesn't bring happiness. While that's true, money can solve all of the money problems, right? Just imagine all the problems you could solve if money wasn't an issue. Medical bills, paid. Mortgage, paid off. Children or grandchildren's tuition, don't worry about it. It's taken care of. Worried about retirement? Well, now you have cash coming in regularly. That's very exciting. And here's the good news for the folks at home. Robert and Jim told me backstage that they've just identified a new cash flow zone trade that could pay as early as next week. And they're prepared to send the details to anyone who is interested in learning more about this opportunity. They'll send you an email with all the directions. As you're about to see, this is just the beginning of something special. The subject line will be your first cash flow zone trade, how to collect thousands by next week. Robert and Jim have already done all the hard work. They've already set up the cash flow zone. Now all you need to do is get the details and decide whether or not you'd like to place the trade. And if it finishes inside the zone, which is very likely, you'll get paid, potentially thousands. Isn't that right, Jim?
That's right. But you need to act fast. The way these types of trades are structured, the longer you wait to get in, the less money you'll collect. So every day you wait, you're literally leaving money on the table.
Okay, got it. Folks, this email that Robert is ready to send is all part of a brand new project Robert is launching. Something that he's never done before. Something that could help anyone collect income every week. Robert, in 1997 you released Rich Dad, Poor Dad because you wanted to help change the way people think about money. Is this new project part of your mission? I mean, this has been your mission since then, right?
Well, it's really been my mission for most of my life. The reason is because my poor dad, you know, a PhD and all those good things, he lost his job when he was 50s, and he couldn't recover. So the PhD didn't help him in the real world because he was an academic type. So it was back then, I just come back from Vietnam, and in '72, and to find my father unemployed was devastating. So when he told me to go back to school and get my master's and my PhD, I said, well, Dad, that's what you did. But for the World War II generation, it was good advice. Get your PhD and you were set for life. It hasn't worked it's not going to work for the baby boom generation, because it was in 1974 that the quasi 401k came out. And it forced the baby boomers, our generation, into the stock market, and they have no financial education. So, you know, 781 was Nixon taking the dollar off the gold standard. 784 was ERISA, which then became the 401k. And now we have baby boomers, and one of the biggest threats to baby boomers is their pensions are disappearing. You know, today CalPERS, which is the largest state employee pension plan in the United States, is $1 trillion underwater. CalPERS. You know, many states, their pensions are gone. So we have a pension crisis that is massive. And so that's why I'm concerned. And that's why I started writing Rich Dad, Poor Dad, much to the consternation of my family. They go, how dare you call your father a poor dad? I said, well, I saw his financial statements. You know, just because someone has a nice car doesn't mean they're rich, and a nice house doesn't mean they're rich. When you look at a financial statement, my dad was a good man, very highly educated, dedicated man, but he knew nothing about money. And these are the people teaching our kids today. That's my concern.
Look, Brian, if you go into Robert's office here in Scottsdale, you'll see his mission statement at the entrance. It reads, to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. I've known Robert for years, and I can tell you he's really passionate about teaching others about money and what it really takes for anyone to achieve financial freedom. He's already accomplished so much with his books, courses, his cash flow game, his seminars. He has already helped millions of people, no doubt about it. But now we're taking his mission to the next level, and we're doing it with a new project we're calling Rich Dad's Weekly Cash Flow. It's a brand new research service that will give you a chance to make income ranging from $840 $4,540, and even as much as $10,600 on a weekly basis by recommending specific cash flow trades with a range that will maximize your chance of making money, just like I've told you about here today.
That's really exciting, guys. I mean, look at all the money that you could make on a weekly basis. That really has the potential to change a lot of people's lives. So how does Rich Dad's weekly cash flow work? Can you explain that for us, Jim?
Sure, it's very simple. Every week, Robert's team and I will be using our system to target only cash flow zone trades that have an 80% chance of paying you money. We'll do all the analysis for you and send you an email every week with our research, the exact instructions on how to profit, the exact setup, what trade to make, and when to take your profits. That's a total of 52 cash flow trades in a year. That will give you the chance to collect income every week. And Rich Dad's weekly cash flow is the only place where we'll make these recommendations available.
That sounds easy enough for me. I mean, this kind of strategy is already changing lives of everyday folks, like I mentioned earlier. I've seen some notes from them, so let me put a small sample on the screen. Ryan D says, "It's super easy. That's definitely not rocket science. I like that you earn money in case the market stays within a specific range, which statistically is profitable." Here's one from Denise Z saying, "These trades are easy to execute. You don't need to know where the market is going. Just need to have a range." Zach B tells us, "So far, I've made around $5,000. I know that I will get out of the rat race and have financial freedom," writes David Corley. Guy Pierce says, "I am placing trades and getting cash flow immediately, and I'm able to keep that cash repeatedly." Daniel Robinson wrote in to say, "I am able to generate cash flow on a weekly basis. I put on a trade that generated $400 in 2 days with the S&P 500. Being a disabled veteran, this has given me the opportunity to make my time useful and exciting again." And finally, we have this note from Ben Lau. "I knew nothing about trading stocks and options, but now I can confidently execute a few trades to get some cash coming into my account." With this new research service, anyone will be able to join those who are already cashing in on this kind of strategy. These are regular folks, just like you, who are watching at home. They are not professional traders or anything like that. And you can just get started in a few minutes with Robert's email. It will have the subject line, "Your first cash flow zone trade, how to collect thousands by next week." And to help everyone get started, Robert has also prepared a very special gift, a free mentorship program with Robert Kiyosaki and Jim Rickards. Jim, can you explain how this mentorship program works?
Sure. Robert's team and I realize this is a brand new way of making money for most people. So we've recorded a 7-part video series explaining all the details of this cash flow zone strategy. It's called Rich Dad's Cash Flow Zone Mentorship. We'll hold your hand and take you through the entire process, showing you how to open and close a sample trade. In this special series, we'll show you how to place cash flow zone trades in your online brokerage account and in your IRA with a click of a button. The number one mistake people make when placing these trades, it could cost you thousands. But if you follow my strategy, you'll never make this mistake. How to try every single trade recommendation without risking a penny of your own capital in investing. I do this all the time. How anyone can execute these trades in less than 10 minutes a week, even if you've never invested before, and much, much more. Once you watch these short videos, you'll be ready to hit the ground running, but you must follow the strategy our team lays out in the video. It's really easy to implement, but if you don't follow our steps, your chances of collecting money every week will decrease. That's why this mentorship program is so important. Look, some people have paid as much as $45,000 to attend Robert's educational seminars. But this 7-part video series can be yours free when you join Rich Dad's Weekly Cash Flow.
That's great, Jim. I mean, for most people, this is a brand new way of getting paid every week. So it's nice that you and Robert will walk readers through the entire process. And for the folks at home, I have to say, I have no idea what you're doing with your money or what's your financial situation right now. But my guess is, if you've watched this summit this far, you're looking for a change. You're looking for a way to make more money. So ask yourself, if you just keep doing whatever you're doing and don't even try Robert's weekly cash flow system, where do you see yourself in a year or even 5 years from now? If you just keep doing the same thing, it's very likely you'll be in the same spot you're in right now, right? Or maybe even worse. Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but from reading your book, it sounds like your poor dad never had the open mind to try anything new, and he just did what everyone else was doing. Is that right? Can you talk about that?
Well, that's a great question. It was that generation. They remember the Depression. You know, none of us remember the Depression. So it was so much on his mind, you know, being poor and eating, you know, turnip soup or whatever they did. And my family was really poor. And that fear of poverty, you know, Hoovervilles and all these things was fresh on their mind. So that's why they had to, the government had, Wall Street to pass ERISA, which became the 401k, was to get a whole new generation of idiots called baby boomers into the market and not know a thing. And that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because without financial education, you know, we're toast. We're toast. So there was, I'm not really religious, but I remember from, I think, Hosea, it says, my people perish from lack of knowledge. And people need that knowledge, so that's why Jim and I have partnered up. Well, let me give another depth to that whole thing. My rich dad, his father died when he was 13, so he was yanked out of school. This is in Hawaii. He got yanked out of school, so suddenly he's the man of the family, he's running the family business. So his teachers were his bankers, his bookkeepers, his accountants, his attorneys. So my rich dad learned from the real guys on the street who are doing it every day. He didn't have a financial planner. This is why he was rich. You know, he didn't listen to his stockbroker or his real estate broker. His banker, his accountant, his bookkeeper, his attorneys, they taught him the fundamentals of money. And that's what we're teaching people.
So your rich dad, on the other hand, was an open-minded guy who was always willing to try something new, something that could make him more money. He knew that if you just do what everyone else is doing, you'll get ordinary results. And that's so true. Okay, so just to recap, for the folks at home watching this right now, you'll get Robert's email with the subject line, your first cash flow zone trade, how to collect thousands by next week, and the 7-part video series, Rich Dad's Cash Flow Zone Mentorship. Everything Robert mentioned so far is yours free as soon as you become a charter member of Rich Dad's Weekly Cash Flow. Remember, you do not have to understand all the math behind these trades. Robert and Jim have done all the hard work for you in this research service. If you can follow a simple set of directions, like go to your computer and press a few buttons, then you can do this. And it should only take a few minutes of your time. Robert, Jim, I'm sure folks at home are wondering, normally, how much is a subscription?
Let me ask you this, Brian. So far, you've seen how you could make $840, $4,540, and even $10,600 a week. Based on everything you've seen so far, how much would that be worth to you? Be honest.
Well, if I could make, let's just say about $2,000 a week, I'd do it over and over again. You're talking about $100,000 a year, give or take. So I guess it's worth that much at least. But most people would never be able to afford that.
I hear you. And look, our team has been working on this project for the past few months, and we've committed a lot of resources, close to an estimated $1.3 million when you account for everything involved in our research. So there's a ton of money wrapped up in this project. But here's the good news. Rich Dad's Weekly Cash Flow won't cost anywhere near $100,000, $50,000, or even $10,000. Because this is an exciting new project, Robert and I have negotiated a special offer with our publisher.
Hold on, Jim. Sorry to interrupt. I can't wait to hear that special offer. But before we get to that, I'd like to take some questions from the audience. Just keep in mind, Jim and Robert won't be providing personalized financial advice. I know the folks watching at home might still have some questions. So let's just take a few minutes for Q&A. I see someone has a question.
Hi, I'm Tom Kroll from Port St. Lucie, Florida. And first of all, Robert, I just want to say thank you. Before I read your book, I was a lawn care guy in South Florida, mowing lawns. I was totally broke and bankrupt and living paycheck to paycheck. I found your book and it changed my life. Not only did you teach me the difference between assets and liabilities, but you also helped me get onto the Inc. 5000 list and become a millionaire. So I really want to say I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much. I actually now teach some of your philosophy, and my question is around that, some of my students who are getting started. So here is my question. What would you say to someone who doesn't have much money to invest? Do brokers require a minimum to get started in this strategy?
Well, I can take that question. Most brokers require at least $2,500 to get started. But because we'll be recommending a new trade every week, it would be beneficial to have at least $5,000 in the account to give you enough ammunition for all the trades.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Robert, Jim. I'm John from Honolulu. Robert, your home state. First and foremost, before I ask my question, I got to say, Robert, thank you so much for everything you've done. I picked up your book probably 20 years ago, and it has literally been a game changer for me. It really changed my mindset around money. It's probably been the most impactful education I've had, including all the education I've endured. So thank you very much. So my question is, this cash flow zone strategy sounds really great, but what happens if the trade goes wrong and if it finishes outside the zone? How important is risk management?
Yes, I would say risk management is essential. And as my rich dad always said to me, start small, stay small for about 5 years. Because what happens to a lot of people is they think they know it all, then they bet the ranch, and the ranch is gone. So start small, stay small. The most important thing is experience. Is that true?
Yeah, I agree. Just to add what Robert is saying, we showed you today how these trades have a very high probability of paying you, but I can't stress enough, it's not 100%. There's no such thing as a guaranteed trade in the investment world. Anyone who tells you they found a perfect strategy, they're full of it. The key is, when you're wrong, you cut your losses quick. And that's what we'll be doing in Rich Dad's weekly cash flow. Once we recommend one of these trades, we'll watch it like a hawk. As I mentioned before, we don't want the trade to move outside the cash flow zone. So as soon as that starts to happen, we make some adjustments to the trade to reduce our risk. It can get a bit complicated, so I won't cover the details here. But the pros on Wall Street call this adjustment delta hedging. You're basically making an adjustment to the trade to reduce your risk. So let's say a trade is going wrong and it moved outside the cash flow zone. If you do nothing, you might lose, say, $500. But with delta hedging, we can bring that down to $250 or even less. Now, just to show you how safe this cash flow zone strategy is, in 2008, most people lost everything in the markets, right? I mean, lots of stocks crashed 80%, 90%. Some even went to zero. Well, had you used this cash flow zone strategy in the typical way in 2008, you'd have lost about 4% of your money. I mean, this kind of loss will never bankrupt anyone. So we're talking about a 4% loss during the biggest financial crisis of our generation. This is so impressive that Barron's even wrote an article about it. So we're really cutting risk to the bone with such potential small losses.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's move on to the final question.
Hi, I'm Robert Helms from Dallas, and really appreciate being here. Jim, I'm a big fan, read every one of your books, and Robert, I think every one of your books. I know Rich Dad, Poor Dad had a huge impact on me, and obviously a lot of the folks in the audience. Robert, I think that it's pretty clear this cash flow zone strategy has the potential to generate extra income, but you're always talking about the importance of having multiple sources of income, and everyone knows you love real estate. I mean, you collect a lot of cash flow from rental income. Would you still recommend anyone put money to work in the real estate market?
Well, the trouble with real estate is it's illiquid. So what we're talking about here, liquidity is the key for everybody just starting out. That means if you make a mistake, you can get out quickly. The trouble with real estate, you make a mistake, you write it down. So that's why I don't recommend real estate. Also, the other thing is invest in what you love. I love real estate, but I spent a lot of time studying it. Because you make one mistake, you're the skipper of the Titanic on that baby. So the cash flow zone trading technique is liquidity. You make a mistake, you can cut your losses immediately. Real estate, you can't do that.
I just want to add something that everyone should keep in mind. Real estate is great, and it's definitely a great way to make your money work for you. But the deals can get complicated. There are banks involved, financing. You have to go look at the property, deal with tenants. This cash flow zone strategy is totally different. You can do it from home, and will only take a few minutes of your time. You just read our alerts, decide if you want to participate, then press a few buttons on your computer, and that's it. And you can get started in just a few minutes with Robert's first email. It will have the subject line, Your First Cash Flow Zone Trade, How to Collect Thousands by Next Week.
Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, thanks for all the questions. I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
For the folks at home, you can get started with your cash flow zone trade today with Robert's first email. Robert is ready to send an email with all the details to anyone who responds today. But here's the thing. While everyone can do this, Robert told me he's not just looking for anyone. Because they're going to do all the hard work for you and basically hold your hand through how to execute every single trade, They want to make sure they can provide all the necessary support through their research. So today, they're limiting this to a small group of 1% of their readership, available on a first-come, first-served basis. Once they hit that limit, they'll shut it down, maybe for good.
Look, Brian, this is also a way for Robert's team and me to share our research only with serious people who want to learn how to make money every week. This is a very special project, so we're not looking for just anyone. We're looking for the right people to join us.
I understand. For the folks at home, Robert is ready to send this email to you. Again, it will have the subject line, Your First Cash Flow Zone Trade, How to Collect Thousands by Next Week. You could have the email in 5 minutes, and if you decide to invest, you could take the steps to be in the trade in less than 15 minutes from now. You'll find all the details of how to execute Robert and Jim's strategy in the 7 video series. These are yours free as soon as you join Rich Dad's Weekly Cash Flow. And that's not all. You see, backstage, Robert also told me he's prepared a few surprises for all the folks at home. I have a list of these surprises right here on the screen. Let's cover those right now. Surprise number 1, your chance to win multiple checks for the value of income from one of Robert's rentals. You know, Robert has thousands of properties generating passive income, but you're looking at a very specific property here in Scottsdale. I'm sure Robert recognizes this property. Each apartment in this property generates about $3,608 a month in rental income. Folks, so here's the big surprise. They're going to pay the value of the cash flow he gets from one of these apartments to someone in the audience watching at home for an entire year. That's right. They'll send you a check for the value of that rental income. Let me repeat that. That's $3,608 a month for an entire year. That could be yours. There's no purchase necessary, and the applicable terms and conditions are at the bottom of your screen. Anyone watching can enter. If you win, you can put that money to work for you using this cash flow zone strategy and collect even more income. Or you can use it to take your family on an exotic vacation, or for that home remodeling project you've been thinking about. It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. And that's not all. This next surprise might be even more exciting. Surprise bonus gift number 2, exclusive video with Robert's personal team of advisors. That's right. Robert asked some of his top advisors to record a video for you with their top ideas to help you make even more money. Robert, you were in the Marines, so you know the importance of having a good team, right?
Right. You know, one thing, I went to military school also, and it was always about teamwork. And it wasn't about your rank. It was the importance of every member of your team. As a pilot, I depended upon my crew chief just as much as my co-pilot. You know, so there was no such thing as rank. It's just how well did we function as a team. And as one of my friends once said to me, he said, I'm alive today because dead men kept fighting. And that's one of the reasons being a Marine in Vietnam was a horrible experience in many ways, but it was the best experience of my lifetime because I learned to value the importance of having a great team that's focused on everybody winning.
That's exciting, folks. 3 of Robert's top advisors have recorded a special video for you watching at home. That includes his tax advisor, Tom Wheelwright, CPA, who's also the best-selling author of the book Tax-Free Wealth, How to Build Massive Wealth by Permanently Lowering Your Taxes. He'll share his top tips on how to get back more money from the government this tax season. His real estate advisor, Ken McElroy, who's also the best-selling author of ABCs of Real Estate Investing, The Secrets of Finding Hidden Profits Most Investors Miss, he'll share with you the #1 way of finding deals that could generate thousands of dollars every month in rental income. And his asset protection advisor, Garrett Sutton, Esquire, who's the best-selling author of The ABCs of Getting Out of Debt, turn bad debt into good debt and bad credit into good credit. Garrett will tell you his best asset protection tips to help you keep more of what's yours. I mean, it's nearly impossible for anyone to get these people on the phone. And even if you got lucky, you'd have to pay thousands of dollars in consultation fees. But today, you have a chance to claim this video series free. It's yours once you join Rich Dad's Weekly Cash Flow. That's incredible, Robert. So let me recap everything for the folks at home. Here's everything you'll get once you become a charter member. weekly commentary on what's happening in the investment world, valued at $199. A new cash flow zone trade recommendation every week. Every week, Robert and his team will recommend a new cash flow zone trade that can make you $840, $4,540, and even as much as $10,600. You'll get 52 plays in a year, including your free first recommendation email with the subject line, Your First Cash Flow Zone Trade, how to collect thousands of dollars by next week, a $5,000 value. Free 7-video series, Rich Dad's Cash Flow Zone Mentorship, to help you get started right away. This series is valued at $399. You'll also get surprise number 1, a chance to win monthly checks for $3,608 for an entire year. No purchase necessary, terms and conditions apply. This is a $43,296 value. Bonus gift number 2, video series with Robert's personal team of advisors, a $3,999 value. Urgent, anytime profit-taking alerts. When it's finally time to take gains, Robert will blast out an urgent email telling you exactly what to sell, for what potential gain. It couldn't be easier. These urgent emails are valued at $399. Finally, you'll get monthly model portfolio updates. Every month, Robert and Jim and their team will send you a recap of the open trades and what to do with them, a $399 value. That's a total value of $53,691. Robert and Jim are doing all the hard work, and they're making it really easy for anyone to get started with this cash flow strategy. So Jim, how much is the subscription?
Now, Robert won't tell you this because he's too humble, but he's a very good negotiator. And he was able to negotiate an incredible deal with our publisher. You see, Robert has never published a research service like this before. And because this strategy gives you the chance to collect thousands of dollars every week without betting on the exact direction of stocks, and with trades that target a mathematical 80 to 90% chance of winning, our publisher wanted to charge at least $10,000 for an annual subscription. But Robert was able to negotiate a 50% discount, so down to just $5,000.
That's great news. I mean, based on what we've seen today, you could easily make all that money back in just a couple of weeks. And that's not just a guess. As we showed you earlier, we've heard from folks like Matt Z from Texas, who says he made $40,000 in just 3 months from the cash flow zone. That's an average of $3,333 a week. At that pace, the research would pay for itself in 2 weeks. For that reason, I think that price of $5,000 is an incredible deal. I mean, I don't know of any other research service that has the potential to pay for itself in a couple of weeks. But Robert, let's be honest, $5,000 is a lot of money to some people. What do you say to someone who's thinking right now, I can't afford this? I remember from your book that your rich dad taught you something important about that, right?
Yeah, and I got in a lot of trouble for that. He says, my rich dad always said, poor people say I can't afford it more than rich people. See, a rich person would say, how can I afford it? But poor people always say, I can't afford it. You know, I love my mom and dad, but what's their favorite words? I can't afford it. Do you think I'm made of money? And unfortunately, as we know the neuropsychology, when you say, I can't afford it, you become that, your words. You know, from Sunday school, the words become flesh. So the more you say you can't afford it, the poorer you become. So just, you know, nothing else. Choose your words carefully. Ask yourself, how can I afford it, and what's it worth to me? You see, the key to success is not how much money you save, but how well you spend or invest your money. So for myself personally and my wife Kim, you know, we're financially free at 47. She was at 37. What was that worth? You know, and we didn't have jobs. We didn't have a 401k. We didn't have pensions. We didn't have Social Security. All we had was brain power. So what is your brain power to think like a rich person worth to you? Or you can spend the rest of your life like so many millions of people saying, oh, I can't afford it. You know, you rich guys just want to rip us off. Well, that's your belief system. But we wouldn't be doing this because we don't need the money.
Well said, Robert. That's the same thing I tell my grandkids. Rather than say, I can't afford it, ask, how can I afford it? That's a mindset of abundance that forces you to think and expand your horizons. Having said that, we understand this is a brand new way of making money every week. And even though this is an easy one, a lot of people might need an extra incentive to take action. So Robert and I agreed to do two very special things for the folks at home right now. First, we're going to lower the price even more, down to a crazy price of $3,000. That's a full $2,000 off the regular price. Robert and I both come from the middle class, so we want to make this as affordable as we possibly can. I don't want the price to be an issue.
Wow, that's an incredible discount. I mean, like I showed earlier, this entire package has a value of $53,691. So at $3,000, you're basically giving this away. That's great. So you said you're doing two special things. The first one is the special discount. What's the other one?
We're also going to give you a $10,500 special guarantee package. Here's how it works. We'll basically guarantee that our model portfolio will give you the chance to make 10 times the cost of your subscription over the next year. If we don't, and our track record doesn't show it, just give us a call and we'll give you a special guarantee package as a gift. This package includes 1 extra year of Rich Dad's weekly cash flow, value $5,000. A $500 gift card you can use to buy anything published by Rich Dad, value $500. And 1 extra year of any VIP trading service published by the Paradigm Press, value $5,000. In total, that's a $10,500 guarantee package. If we don't perform, just call us and we'll give it to you free. No questions asked. In other words, we're fully covering the cost of your subscription. That's how confident Robert's team and I are on our cash flow zone system.
Wow, that's very exciting. Folks, I have to say, I've never seen anything like this cash flow zone strategy. Today, you saw how you could have made $840, $4,540, and even as much as $10,600 without gambling your money on the direction of the markets. This strategy can have a very high mathematical probability of working out in your favor. Depending on how you play it, some of them can even have a probability higher than 90%, which is unheard of in the investment world, and way better than just flipping a coin, like you do when you buy stocks. You saw how people who are following this kind of strategy are already collecting income every week without working at a job. They just click a few buttons and collect cash every week. Robert has negotiated a special charter membership offer with the lowest price his publisher will ever offer. And they guarantee you'll have a chance to make at least 10 times the price of your subscription. If they fail, they're giving you a special guarantee package to help cover the price of your subscription anyway. Now it's time for a decision. Remember, only 1% of readers will be able to get in today. You could become one of the lucky charter members who will join Rich Dad's weekly cash flow. Once the 1% cap is reached, they'll have to shut this offer down. Just keep in mind that they have an estimated $1.3 million tied up in this project. Because of all the money they committed, there's no refund on this new project. I realize some people will think that's not fair, and they will close the page and forget about this opportunity. And that's okay. Like Robert said earlier, he's looking for the right type of people. Look, there's two kinds of people in this world, and I see this all the time in my show, London Real. There's two kinds of people. Those who take action to improve their lives, these are the types of people I interview on my show. And those who just dream about a better life, but never do anything to make it happen. Only you can decide if this weekly cash flow strategy is right for you. But I'll leave you with this advice. No one cares as much about your financial security as you do. Don't wait for the government, a financial advisor, or your boss to take care of you. You must take control of your finances. Take responsibility for your life and your future. Robert likes to say, you're either a master of money or a slave to it. Those are your only two options. Do you want to be a master of money or a slave to it? Only you can decide. But since you've watched this entire summit so far, I think you're the kind of person who takes action to improve your life. The kind of person Robert is looking for. And if I'm right, and you're still with me, Robert is ready to send you that email with the subject line, your first cash flow zone trade, how to collect thousands of dollars by next week. And there's one more thing we forgot to mention. Robert has prepared 2 other surprise bonus gifts worth a total of $1,194. These are yours free when you join us today. Click below to get details of this special offer and these additional gifts. But you better act fast. Based on what I've seen today, I expect the limited spots to fill up fast. More than 1 million people could be watching this summit right now. And if you're one of the lucky ones who gets in, you'll be able to get started in a matter of minutes. To get started, simply click the Reserve My Spot Now button that you see below on your screen. Hitting this button does not obligate you to anything. You'll just be directed to another page where you can review all the details of this special offer. Robert and Jim, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And for the folks at home, thanks for watching. I think we all learned a lot about cash flow today.
It's my pleasure, and I thank everybody for watching. It's a very exciting time.
Robert, Brian, it's great to be here. And thanks, everyone.